Devils beat writer James Nichols joins me on today's episode as we're going to talk about our expectations moving forward after the Devils' big win over the Edmonton Oilers. Are they legitimate? Is this just a trend? Well, I would love to hear what James has to say about it. Lots to talk about in today's episode of Locked On Devils, so buckle up, everybody.
You're Locked On Devils, your daily podcast on the New Jersey Devils, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, this is Bryce Salvador, and you're Locked On Devils with Trey Matthews.
Elliott scores! Oh, Stevens stepped up, nailed it. Brodor's got the puck. What a shot. The Devils win the Stanley Cup.
Alrighty now, what is up, New Jersey? Welcome back to the Locked On Devils podcast here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, college hockey play-by-play announcer, and also Devils writer for Pucks and Pitchforks, Trey Matthews. I am joined alongside Devils beat writer for the Fourth Period. It's James Nichols. James, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Trey. How are you?
Great game yesterday. I'm in a great mood. At the time of recording, the New Jersey Devils are on a 5-game win streak. They have another game against the Calgary Flames. So this Canadian Western trip is actually going pretty well so far for the Devils.
Yeah, I mean, so far so good. They saw a Vancouver team who, is trying to get their stuff together. They're figuring it out, I guess now. But by the time the Devils got to them a couple of games ago, they were still in the process of figuring things out. So, just one of those things where the Devils were the better team, and they should have handled that situation the way they did. And I believe after the game, Nico Hischier even said, that wasn't our best effort, but we found a way to win, which is an example of a good team who knows, like, listen, even when we don't play our best, we find a way to come out on the other side with a W. So again, just the mark of a good team. And then, you see what they did against the Oilers last night. And, that was probably their biggest test of the season. I was talking about this yesterday on a Twitter space where, the Avalanche come through at home, and that was a big game as well. Obviously, the defending Stanley Cup champions, but they're not completely healthy, right? They were missing Val Nichushkin, they were missing Gabe Landeskog, and two key components of that team. But still good to see them get a win. They still had, Cale Makar, Devin Tays, and Nathan MacKinnon. Big test, but I thought that the Edmonton Oilers game in Edmonton was a bigger one. And again, they come out on the other side with a win. They found a way, and it was probably their biggest, most impressive performance to so far this season.
Yeah, it's funny how you say test, because I literally used that same word in yesterday's episode when I was recapping the game, because I said that for the New Jersey Devils, you're going against one of the best players to ever play the game in Connor McDavid. You also have a generational type talent in Leon Draisaitl, and you're playing on the road at Edmonton. They're also on a 5-game win streak. They have the same exact record at the time of the New Jersey Devils, but let's face it, I'm sure the Devils were listed as underdogs going into that matchup. So that's something you definitely had to take into consideration. And so it was already a challenge for them going into the game, but it got bigger and bigger and bigger as the game progressed, because Mackenzie Blackwood went down with an injury. We don't know. We still don't have a specific update at the time of recording, because all I know is Amanda Stein said that obviously he wasn't participating in practice. Obviously, it's going to be a lower body injury, but we just don't know the severity of it. We don't know if it's day-to-day. We don't know if he's going to need surgery, but knowing the Devils are not really going to go into full detail in that regards. We'll know worst case scenario when they actually break the news, similar to what happened with Andre Palat or Miles Wood last year. But digressing a little bit, Vitek Vanecek had to come off the bench ice cold during a power play. That was probably one of the worst situations that you could put Vitek Vanecek in. And first shot that the Oilers got, they scored. Jesper Bratt had a bit of a brain fart in period number 1. And then come period number 3, the Devils were down by 2 goals. Now, one thing I noted is that what was different about them trailing this game compared to like the Capitals, Red Wings, and Flyers game was that they were not down by that much. And it seemed like they had some decent momentum heading their way. I just said, you got to score early. And once you do, you cannot allow the Oilers to score once again. And the Devils got more shots on goal, and they were able to maintain that offensive pressure. And thus they were able to tie it very late. Ryan Graves, who didn't really have a good game, was making a bit of boneheaded decisions early on, was able to redeem himself. Jesper Bratt was able to extend his point streak, break the franchise record by recording a point in 11 straight games to start the season. So this was a true test for New Jersey Devils. And are they legitimate? That's my question.
I mean, yeah, they're starting to convince me, right? I did write the other day that they're starting to turn that page, and the sample looks pretty good, right? You can only play the schedule that you're given, and there's been a lot of talk about how it's been a light schedule, a pretty easy schedule so far. But when you go up against what in my opinion could be the Western Conference favorites to head back to the conference final in the West, and possibly even the Stanley Cup, you see the game that they played against them. That was a convincing win, and Elliot Freeman said earlier today on his show too, like, that wasn't a fluke win, that was an earned win. So the pace of the game was really what stood out to me, right? We know the Edmonton Oilers are going to fly because they have Connor McDavid, they have Leon Draisaitl, but the New Jersey Devils were just as fast, and it was just like Lindy Ruff said, a game where it was two really fast teams playing a really fast game, and you saw a New Jersey team who made a statement and said, we can hang with the big dogs. So I'm starting to believe more and more as the days go on that they are legit, so long as they can just get decent goaltending. And that's absolutely, they got more than decent goaltending last night out of Vitek Vanacek. The time that Mackenzie Blackwood put into the game, I thought that he was just fine as well. So so long as they continue to get that consistent goaltending, we know they're going to possess the puck because they're possession machines at 5-on-5. Their power play is getting a little bit better, and the defense is good. They're really deep back there. So I'm buying in on the New Jersey Devils. This is my first year covering them full time. I was, with the Islanders previously, but what I'm seeing out of them, I covered the Islanders in 2 cup runs or in 2 playoff runs in the past 3 years, and I saw the make of a mature team, a really good team, and they put those mistakes behind them, even in the middle of a game, and they look forward and they correct those mistakes. And that's something that the New Jersey Devils did last night against the Oilers, one of the better teams in the NHL. So I think they're maturing despite them being young, and they're one of the more skilled teams in the league. And with that speed, it's pretty convincing that they're legit.
Yeah, I mean, it's only 11 games into the year, so I don't really want to jump the gun on anything. However,
Sure.
I don't think this is a fluke. They're on a 5-game win streak. They've won 8 of their last 9. And it seems like they're outscoring their opponents by a decent amount. And their defense has gotten a lot better. John Marino was a huge steal for Tom Fitzgerald. Same with what he was able to get for Jonas Siegenthaler just a few years ago. The Devils are just capitalizing on finding diamonds in the rough and utilizing them to the best of their abilities, sort of taking like a Billy Bean Moneyball type approach, which is you find sort of the misfit players, the players that are not really that greatly appreciated on their previous roster. And then you're just like, you can have a big role if you play for the Devils.
Yeah, that's well said. I think that the Devils and Tom Fitzgerald saw something in John Marino that the Pittsburgh Penguins were missing. And I was saying yesterday that I feel like I see a bit of Jacob Slavin light in John Marino. He has the ability to defend really well. He's always on the ice for up against the opponent's best players, best skaters. And he does a pretty good job shutting them down. Like, obviously, if Connor McDavid scores last night, like, you're not going to bat an eye at Connor McDavid scoring. And of course, John Marino, that's his assignment. But he was, again, out there the next shift covering Connor McDavid again and again. And he received 24 minutes of ice time last night. He leads the Devils night in and night out because he's the most trusted defenseman on the team, it seems. And he's got a little bit of that offensive touch too. Like, he can dish it. He can shoot the puck well. He's an excellent skater. I think the Devils stole him from the Pittsburgh Penguins. I couldn't speak more highly of John Marino. He's been a huge addition to this team. They got a top 4 defenseman, in my opinion, for pennies, and Ty Smith. So Ty Smith right now is in the AHL, that 3rd round pick. Who knows what it's going to be? But in my opinion, that was a steal for the Devils, and it was a huge development for their forward progression.
Yeah, I mean, in yesterday's matchup against the Oilers, what I saw was not just John Marino playing excellent defense. I saw Dougie Hamilton also play excellent defense. I saw Jonas Siegenthaler also play excellent defense. Basically, the name of the game was you got to team up on Connor McDavid, because if you give him just an ounce of daylight, he's going to capitalize. We saw it in that 2-on-1 opportunity when Jesper Bratt turned the puck over instead of electing to shoot. So I said, despite Connor McDavid scoring in period number 1, I still felt as though as the game progressed, the Devils did an excellent job at defending him because you saw Siegenthaler, Marino, Hamilton, whatever the case might be, you saw them trying to poke the puck away. You saw them just smother him. You saw, I don't know if you saw this. This was very minuscule, but at one point during the game, Connor McDavid tried to body John Marino into the boards, and John Marino just literally stood tall, didn't stumble, didn't do anything, took it like it was nothing, and continued to just pass the puck to neutral ice as if it was like a flea that just hit him. And I'm just like, yeah, he brushed him off in that aspect. So the defense has been phenomenal for the New Jersey Devils, and it's one of the reasons why they're having this great amount of success. But I want to rewind the clock a little bit. What were your expectations going into the season for the Devils? Because I said ceiling, wild card. And it seems like at this pace, they're going to break that ceiling, at least in my eyes, because I said wild card, first round exit.
Don't worry, there's still more in store with James, but before we continue with today's episode, we just got to push the pause button on this episode real fast. Okay, so we're paused right now? Great, because you got to try this. I'm talking about Built Bar's new reimagined flavors: cookie dough topper, coconut brownie bar, coconut brownie topper, white chocolate peppermint granola. It's Built's take on granola bars, so it's more filling and still insanely tasty. And candy cane brownie puff. Built Puffs are like biting into the universe's most delicious cloud. First off, for anyone who hasn't tried Built Bars before, they're literally the best tasting protein bars ever. They're revolutionizing nutrients, as we know, with 100% real chocolate, 17 grams of protein, and shockingly low sugar and calories, 130 calories. Just sink your teeth into the first bite and it'll change your life forever. I'm not kidding. There was a time before when you tried Built Bar, you're going to love them. And the magical, wonderful time afterwards, you're probably going to wish that you had more flavors. And what's my favorite flavor, you might be asking? I love them all. And I know that's a cliche to say, but they're so delicious. They're unbelievable. And they're all different. So you can order a mixed box and you can try all 5 flavors for yourself. Built, you got to try this. Get 50% off your order right now by using the promo code LOCKED15 at Built.com. All right, time to push play on this show once again. Back to our discussion with James.
I was probably in the same boat. I didn't think that they were going to be this offensive juggernaut that they've become. Before the season started, I didn't anticipate Nico Hischier breaking out for 11 points in 10 games so far. I know he had a 60-point season last season, but, health eludes him sometimes. I didn't anticipate Jesper Bratt on an 11-game point streak with 17 points thus far through 11 games. I didn't know that John Marino was going to be this good. I didn't know the goaltending was going to be as strong as it has been, at least in the recent history with their this current winning streak. So I was really pleased with the additions this summer in Palat and Howla, Vanacek, and Marino. I thought that all of that veteran presence and all the playoff games that came with them was an excellent add to this young team. But I definitely did expect, a bubble team who was going to make mistakes and probably get into the playoffs, maybe like in the last week of April, right? Claim a playoff spot real late. But right now, the opposite looks like it could be happening. They're leading the Metropolitan Division. And of course, it's still early, but the possession numbers are really convincing. Like if they can continue to play this way night in and night out and get that decent goaltending, you're seeing step forwards with, like I said earlier, Nico Hischier and Jesper Bratt, but also Miles Wood is stepping up. He's playing really well. He had 2 goals last night. Yegor Sharangovich has just been excellent. I think he's severely underrated. Even the fourth line, Nathan Bastian and Michael McLeod are playing really well. So you're seeing a team that's getting all 4 lines rolling. All 6 defensemen are playing well, and they're getting really good goaltending, at least right now in this win streak. So we'll see if it regresses, but again, the statistics look good, and PDO is a bit of a flawed stat, but it's still, with the other statistics embedded into it, like their expected goals, which is really good, top of the league, their Corsi for percentage and everything, also top of the league. They're projecting to be more good than they are lucky, and it's just convincing at this point that they're a good team, and they could possibly claim a spot, one of the top 3 spots in the Metropolitan Division.
Yeah, BMW line of McLeod, Bastian, and Wood have been red hot since October 24th, according to Christy Flannery of the Hockey Writers. And Miles Wood really wanted it. He wanted that hat trick, but he was the one who tied the game in period number 1. He was the one who still kept the Devils comeback alive early on in period number 3. So just bring that energy was just what the doctor ordered. And that's why Miles Wood was so missed last year. It's just because we didn't have that spark plug player last year just to light a fire underneath the Devils. Miles Wood will do that, whether he's getting into a fight. We saw that in the last game, the previous game before the Edmonton Oilers against the Vancouver Canucks when he got into it with Luke Schenn. Because after that scuffle with Luke Schenn, the Devils just kicked it into a different gear because they began that game relatively slow. So it was just like they looked a little lethargic. They didn't really look like they had that much energy, but that was bound to happen, especially when you're traveling over to the western part of Canada. You can't maintain that fast-paced energy all 82 games. It's just not possible. You're bound to crash and burn at a few points in the season, but after that scuffle with Luke Schenn, even though Miles Wood did get his butt kicked, that sparked new life for the Devils. So Miles Wood was greatly missed last year. And I just got to ask you, what are the expectations going forward for the Devils? Like, because I want to keep everyone honest. The last time the Devils made a playoff appearance was 2018. So 2017, 2018, I think at some point in December, they were first in the Metro. But as the season came to an end, the Devils barely squeaked into the wild card position. So that's my thing. I'm excited, but I don't want to get too excited, if that makes sense, because we've crashed and burned before, and we're going to go on a losing streak at some point during the course of the season. It could be 2 games, it could be 5 games, whatever the case might be. The Devils are going to hit some sort of slump this season, similar to a lot of other teams. That's just how it's going to happen. But I just want to keep everyone honest, and I want to ask you this: what are the expectations moving forward?
Yeah, so another big test tomorrow night in Calgary, or tonight as you're hearing this, in Calgary, and then they see them again at home in a weird home and home situation between the United States and Canada. But you look at this month and this schedule. There are some tough games, and there are maybe some easier games, right? Like Ottawa's toiling right now. Then they meet Arizona after that. Montreal, it looks to be like they're a little feistier than people expected, but then they meet, a high octane team in the Toronto Maple Leafs, who, despite the some of the troubles they're having early this season, they're still a team you can't sleep on because they can score a goal at any moment. Then they meet the Oilers again, and Buffalo's playing really well, the Rangers. So this is a big month for them. I think by the time we get to Thanksgiving, if they are still playing as well as they are, you can start to say to yourself, yeah, this team is legit, and we're probably going to get ready to go on some sort of a run here at the playoffs. By the time the trade deadline comes, I'd expect them to maybe load up a little bit if they're close or if they're in it. Just because you bring in those guys, like I said earlier this in the episode, this summer that have the playoff experience, but guys like Jesper Bratt and Andre Palat, Jesper Bratt and Jack Hughes, those guys don't have the playoff experience yet, and you want that for them, just so that they can get a taste and really get that hunger for it to get back there. So I think that moving forward, again, big test last night that they passed. They passed the test against the Colorado Avalanche. If they can beat the Flames in this back-to-back at least once, and make both of those games meaningful games where they don't get blown out, and they look like they're putting up a good fight, you can start to say to yourself, okay, something's cooking here. And like I said, by the time American Thanksgiving rolls around, if they're still playing this way, then I would be probably fully convinced at that point that this is a playoff team, and there's reason to be excited for that.
Yeah, I mean, just like you said, I mean, the Pacific Division is not that tough a division because there's a lot of like poor teams. So you got the Sharks, you got the Ducks, you got the Canucks. At the time when the Devils were about to face the Canucks, they were 6th in the Pacific. And I was just like, you know what? If the Devils are not going to have that good of an outing, make it against the Vancouver Canucks, because if you go against the Edmonton Oilers at that pace like they were in Vancouver, you're going to lose. No ands, ifs, or buts about it. You could probably get away with it with Calgary because they're in the middle of the pack in the Pacific, but it's give or take. Mostly you don't want to risk it. But against Vancouver Canucks, like you said, they're still trying to figure some stuff out. And yeah, it's a good test. Hopefully they can extend this win streak, because honestly, I thought the Edmonton Oilers would snap it. I'll be completely honest with you, because I was just like, I think the Devils will put up a good fight, but I just think like they just need a few more pieces to really become competitive and take it to the next level. So keep an eye out for like Timo Meier for the San Jose Sharks. Keep an eye out for Mitchell Marner for the Toronto Maple Leafs, because I wouldn't be surprised if both respective organizations decide to do something drastic. I call it silly season on my show, if you're not aware, like where I talk about certain trade scenarios or potential signings that the Devils could do. Doesn't mean it'll happen. Doesn't mean I'm not saying it's realistic. I'm just saying, in a hypothetical world, a what if scenario, what if the New Jersey Devils did this? What if the New Jersey Devils did that? Something in that regard. So yeah, you're absolutely right, which is, maybe come the trade deadline, I expect the New Jersey Devils to no longer be sellers or just be saying, hey, we want this guy off the market, like try to trade him for pennies or whatever the case might be. I think Tom Fitzgerald is going to start buying and start incorporating some draft picks, because Tom Fitzgerald has shown he's not really the biggest fan of trading away draft picks in that regards.
Yeah, and that's probably because he's known for a while, ever since drafting Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier, that he's trying to build a winner. But at this point, I mean, the forward group's pretty deep, right? They still have guys like Fabian Zetterlund and Alexander Holtz who are trying to figure out how to stay in the lineup. But when they're not, they have other guys who can hop in with no problem and not skip a beat, right? Palat's been out a few games, and Fabian Zetterlund has been able to pretty much fill in seamlessly. He did receive from Lindy Ruff a comparison to Andre Palat, which speaks high volumes to Fabian Zetterlund's game. But there's always room to improve somewhere. So even though the offense is one of the best in the NHL right now, if not the best in the NHL right now, you look at the right wing next to Nico Hischier, and you say, although Fabian Zetterlund is a nice player, if you have the opportunity to get a Timo Meier, why not do so? His age fits in with the core pretty well. He's in his mid-20s. And, even though he'll be due for a raise, there is the inclination that the salary cap might go up. So maybe we have the opportunity to pay this guy. And if it's not something as drastic as a Timo Meier, there is ways to improve the team moving forward without doing too much damage to the future. So there is also something to be said about, guys like Ryan Graves and Damon Severson, whose contracts are going to be up after the season. And
I don't mean to interrupt you, but if I had to make an educated guess, they're going to extend Ryan Graves because he'll be cheaper. Damon Severson most likely is going to walk.
Yeah, there's that possibility.
Or be traded come the trade deadline.
Yeah, there's both of those are possible scenarios for sure. And I'm almost wondering now, with the new pairing of Ryan Graves and John Marino, how much that influences Ryan Graves staying, just because they're playing pretty well together as a pair. As of right now, I spoke to both players. There's been no contract negotiations to start the season. It's kind of like a wait and see, because obviously there's reinforcements coming with Luke Hughes and Simone Nemec. They also have guys like Riley Walsh, who, if the Devils' blue line wasn't so deep, he could probably be in the NHL right now. So there are parts that this team can sell, but there's something to be said about keeping Damon Severson and Ryan Graves, not trading them at the trade deadline and letting them walk in free agency in order to get value elsewhere in playoff experience, right? Because those two are vital parts of this team right now. They're part of the reason why they're winning. I think there was a similar situation or current situation going on in St. Louis right now with Vladimir Tarasenko, where they're like, are we going to sign this guy or are we going to let him walk? We have aspirations for the playoffs. What's the right path here? And the talk has been, it's okay to let your players walk at the end of contract years, because if and when you're trying to get into the playoffs and make a run. So I think there's something to be said about that. And I could see a situation like that happening with one or both players. But there are reinforcements on the way. So if somebody walks, or if you don't get something for them, they have the assets to be able to, fill those voids.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Damon Severson is that he's dead last on the New Jersey Devils in plus minus at -3. And, he hasn't scored since the first game of the year against the Flyers. And he's supposed to be one of our better offensive defensemen. And then for Ryan Graves, he's hot right now. Like, it seems like he's adjusting really well. Seems like he's finding himself a little bit more. He's looking for the open opportunities. And he also leads the team in plus minus at plus 11 trailing him is John Marino. So it's just like, I just don't see the New Jersey Devils letting go of Ryan Graves at this pace, because he could come at a much cheaper deal. And he does bring a lot of experience, actually. I know he's young, but the previous team he played for was the Colorado Avalanche. He played with Cale Makar. So the question was, can Ryan Graves hold his own coming to New Jersey, or was he just blessed with a good defense out in Colorado? And I think he's answered the question saying he's actually a really good player.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. He moves the puck pretty well. He's a big guy. He could take the body. He has a good reach. He's pretty smart defensively. He knows where to position himself, and he has the foot speed to get himself back into position. God forbid he finds himself out of it. So, like I said earlier, he's been paired with John Marino now, and I think they really like that pair. So that could influence on whether or not Ryan Graves, sticks around, because John Marino will definitely be sticking around, and I think that they want to, put him in the best situation possible. And as at this moment, that's with Ryan Graves. They're playing really well together. That duo was the reason for the tie game last night, and I could see a situation where, yeah, you're right, Graves could stick around, and when Luke Hughes comes over, probably after the start of or the end of the NCAA season. There's the possibility that he'll go down to Utica, but there's also the possibility that they'll try to keep him around for the remainder of the NHL season, at the end of March and in April. So it'll be interesting to see how that situation plays itself out.
So last question, do you have any final thoughts? I always ask my guests this when they, if they're journalists in this regards.
Yeah, I mean, the latest update on Mackenzie Blackwood is that there is no update. He's going to see more doctors today, whether or not
that's never good. If I had to guess, it's either an ankle or a groin injury. Maybe but I think it's a groin if I had to guess.
Yeah. So we'll see how it plays itself out. The interesting thing here is, Jonathan Bernier is on the road trip with them. So is he almost ready? There's chatter that he might be. I know that there was question marks as to whether or not he was going to have to end his career, but that's not the case as far as I'm told. Well, there is the inclination he could be back sooner rather than later, and that might be your seamless transition from Blackwood to Bernier and in tandem with Vanacek.
According to Julie Robbenheimer, when she was on a Twitter space with the Brat Pack, someone you're familiar with, the timeline for Jonathan Bernier was for him to return at around Thanksgiving time. So we're just a couple weeks away from that. So it's just like he's close actually. So, but they're not going to use him unless they absolutely 100% have to.
Right. And, attending training camp, the goaltending situation from top to bottom in the organization actually looks pretty good. Dawes looked really strong. And I had thought for a moment that he was actually going to be considered for the NHL roster. Even Akira Schmid looked pretty good. I liked what I saw from both of those goaltenders. So I think there's definitely some untapped potential there for Dawes. I think, he was a 3rd round pick, and that's typically where, starting goaltenders are drafted in the NHL draft, unless it's, a surefire franchise goaltender like a Spencer Knight. Right. But, I liked what I saw from Dawes. You could see him come up and, maybe be that number 2 to Vanacek. And I think that would be just fine. He showed me a little bit in preseason that stood out and said to me, he has a chance. He's, I think, making his way towards being the goaltender of the future. But for now, if it's just Vanacek and Bernier magically is ready to go maybe a couple weeks early, that's okay too. Bernier is an excellent goaltender. And although he hasn't really had too much consistency in New Jersey because of injury, if he can stay healthy and be a good backup for Vanacek, who looked excellent last night, I think the goaltending situation is going to be okay.
All right, James, where can everyone find you at?
You can find me on Twitter at James Nichols NYI. I'm working on the @ handle. Once Elon Musk takes my blue check mark away, I'm sure I can change it.
Here's the thing, guys. If you're wondering why he can't change the handle right now, because I'm verified on Twitter as well. If you change the handle, so if I change my Twitter handle, TreyMatt4 to like TreyMatt5, I lose my blue check mark permanently.
Right. Yeah. So, and it's an annoying process. I don't feel like going through it again.
Getting verified is not cut and dry as people think it is. You don't just submit something and then boom, you're verified. You have to go through a process. Then Twitter has to review to see if you meet the requirements. So for anyone who says it's easy to get verified, it is not. It is actually a pretty deep process that I didn't go through because luckily I have locked on social media to help me out, but just giving everyone that FYI.
Yeah. So, I'm working on, trying to get that figured out, but it looks like Elon Musk is going to take it away anyway, because I'm not trying to pay for it. So if they take it away, I can make it a little bit
I
more neutral.
really hope that's fake news. I really am praying that's
Yeah.
fake. Because
I guess we'll see. But other than that, you can also read my work at thefourthperiod.com. And you can hear me weekly on Devil's Details via YouTube, every Thursday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
All right, everybody. So the New Jersey Devils are going to be once again put to another test against Calgary Flames in a home and home matchup. So they're going to first play Calgary at Calgary, and then Calgary's going to come over to the Rock. We'll see what happens, but the Devils, they're on fire right now. So James, thanks again for coming on and giving us your insight.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to the next one.